The Godfather is no stranger to critical acclaim. Released in 1972, directed by Francis Ford Coppola and produced by Albert S. Ruddy, this American-Italian mafia crime movie based on the Mario Puzo novel of the same name is often regarded as one of the greatest movies to have ever been created. And it not only paved the way for future mafia pieces such as Goodfellas or The Sopranos, but its unique storytelling and direction inspired a ridiculous amount of movies to follow as well as filmmakers, in addition to a buttload of quotes, impressions and parodies. The novel by Mario Puzo was almost immediately an instant hit that remained on the New York Times bestseller list for 67 weeks straight and ranked in a whopping 9 million copies in just 2 years. Paramount Pictures discovered the book in 1967 before offering the author $80,000 for a possible film adaptation, which he agreed to as he was rather desperate for cash at the time. In 1969, Paramount confirmed their intent to adapt the book into a motion picture and aimed to release it on Christmas Day in 1971. On March 23, 1970, Albert S. Ruddy was announced as the movie's producer. Allegedly, Paramount wanted a genuine Italian-American to direct the film to make it seem more authentic, and Sergio Leone was first approached but turned down the job in favour of directing his own project, ironically also a gangster flick, Once Upon a Time in America. Peter Bogdanovich was then approached, but he rejected the role as he wasn't interested in the mafia genre. Eventually, Francis Ford Coppola was contacted, but originally also turned it down because he failed to finish the novel. However, his own studio was struggling financially and were $400,000 in debt to Warner Brothers. He was forced to take the job and was announced as the director on September 28, 1970, and agreed to receive $125,000 and 6% of the gross rentals. This film really was a saving grace for the studio. Prior to The Godfather's production, Paramount's last mafia-based film, The Brotherhood, was a box office disaster and they were really starting to struggle. Working with the director seemed difficult as he was a perfectionist and often indecisive, slowing down production and costing more money as the filming days drifted by. He was positive that he was going to lose his job until some reshoots were done and the studio were convinced that he was just too good to lose, in addition to one of the main actors threatening to quit if Coppola was removed from the project. As well as all of that, the studio felt the film wasn't going to be nearly as exciting enough and needed more action. On April 14, 1970, it was revealed that original author Mario Puzo was brought onto the project to help with the screenplay. He and Coppola would write separately, occasionally keeping each other in the loop, and the director would slowly merge the scripts into one. When it came down to casting, Mario Puzo really pushed to have Marlon Brando play Don Vito Corleone. Or Corleone. The pronunciation changes throughout the whole movie.
Why don't you say you work for Corleone, Tom?
I need Don Corleone.
Weird. However, Paramount objected to this due to Brando's poor success and apparent difficulty to work with. Director Coppola himself wanted either Brando or Laurence Olivier. The latter declined as he was sick, but would then star in a movie later that year. I smell fraud. The studio tried their best to push for Ernest Borgnine to receive the role, and others who were also considered consisted of George G. Scott, Richard Conte, Anthony Quinn, Carlo Ponti, and Orson Welles. It ended up coming down to Brando and Borgnine, which led to a screening test. During this, Marlon put cotton balls in his cheeks, rolled up his collar, and put shoe polish in his hair to darken it. He ended up getting the role. Coppola immediately wanted Robert Duvall as the part of Tom Hagen and ended up getting his wish, and even Elvis goddamn Presley auditioned for that role and didn't get it. A nightclub singer Al Martino ended up getting the role for Johnny Fontaine, along with some controversy surrounding it, even more so when Frank Sinatra, outraged, thought it was based on him. Due to this, his scenes were cut down, and in addition to Martino's lack of acting experience or ability, the majority of his shots were from behind him. Robert De Niro was approached to play Paulie Gatto, but soon quit to star in The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. Great title. A young Sylvester Stallone even auditioned for the role, but it was then given to Johnny Martino. On March 29, 1971, filming was almost ready to begin and Michael still had yet to be cast. The studio wanted either Warren Beatty or Robert Redford. Producer Robert Evans wanted Ryan O'Neal and director Francis Ford Coppola wanted Al Pacino. The studio found Pacino to be too short and many more were approached, such as Dustin Hoffman, Martin Sheen, James Caan, Tommy Lee Jones, David Carradine and Dean Stockwell. Eventually, Coppola's wish came true of casting Pacino, but under the one condition that James Caan could play Sonny, a role that was also considered for Anthony Perkins and Burt Reynolds, who Marlon Brando point-blank refused to work with due to some hatred between the two. Before filming began, director Francis Ford Coppola would hold improvised dinners in which the actors would have to remain in character the entire time, allowing them to grow as a genuine family for when shooting would actually begin. It's things like this that separated Coppola from other directors at the time, and why he's regarded as one of the all-time greats. This was also the film that would inspire future director Chris Columbus at the age of 15 to become a filmmaker. In September 1971, the first rough cut of the film was premiered and many scenes involving Sonny were cut out as they weren't essential to the story. However, this angered actor James Caan, who was not informed beforehand, resulting in him confronting the producer in public. He estimated 45 minutes of his character had been cut out of the picture. Despite being nominated and winning the Oscar, Marlon Brando refused to show up to the ceremony and completely rejected the award, objecting to the depiction of American Indians in movies. Not many people could say they turned down an Academy Award. Bet that pissed off Leonardo DiCaprio. Al Pacino was also nominated for a Best Supporting Actor award, but he too refused to show up to the ceremony, calling it a joke. He was outraged that he was in that category when he had far more screen time than the apparent lead Marlon Brando. I can't say that I disagree, the film is largely based on Pacino's character, and in total, Brando has less than 1 hour of screen time in a 3-hour movie. I'd be pretty pissed off too.
That's a true story.
Only to add to the ongoing controversy even further, the Italian-American Civil Rights League actually started a campaign to prevent the film from ever being released. It was to the point producer Robert Evans was actually phoned up at his home and had himself and his family threatened. Paramount received threats of protests to disrupt the shooting process, and it's amazed that the movie was even finished in the first place. So the movie features Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone, or Corleone, a godfather, the don of a New York crime family. He hears several requests and usually follows through with violence and/or murder. His son Michael, played by Al Pacino, tries to distance himself from that side of his family as he has a girlfriend and doesn't want that life for her. However, after Vito is almost assassinated, he seeks revenge. I never get that with these kind of films, or the logic of the mafia. Like, you go out and put hits on people, you kill people, and then you get angry or confused when they retaliate.
He's still alive. They hit him with 5 shots and he's still alive.
Should have got Donald Pleasance to do it.
I shot him 6 times!
It has its problems, which I'll address momentarily, but I feel I have to acknowledge why exactly this movie still holds up and is an absolutely incredible piece to this day. Not only is the acting all great, clearly supported by the performances of Pacino and Brando, but the subtlety is what carries the film. Francis Ford Coppola didn't need to over-direct. So many filmmakers feel the need to overcomplicate their shots in a desperate attempt to get the viewer to notice their work. Here, Coppola trusted the screenplay. He believed in the story. The story in of itself is what carries the movie to its brilliance. It's 3 hours long, but the slow pacing tells the story magnificently. There's very little music, which at times makes the suspense that more chilling and intense, but when it does kick in, it makes those moments far more impactful. The movie's cinematographer Gordon Willis, who apparently did not get along with Coppola, insisted that every shot of the movie be from a point of view, and it helps the viewer feel involved in the action as if they're actually there, which makes the experience that more enjoyable. It makes it more real, which is what every film should do. The lighting in particular, always dark and gloomy, adds to the chilling atmosphere that the actors and story envelope so well. The only aerial shot in the entire movie is when Brando's character is shot down, and that was intended to signify God's point of view. Speaking of which, that scene was being watched by several members of the public who kept unintentionally ruining the sequence by feeling so overwhelmed by Brando's performance, they felt the need to just burst into applause. It's astonishing furthermore to discover that Brando refused to memorize any of his dialogue, and he was pretty much reading cue cards for the majority of the picture, which is completely unnoticeable. I feel like this is the perfect piece to show any aspiring filmmaker. Anyone who truly wants to learn how to tell a compelling story without the need of over-the-top direction or effects. The special effects in this are simple but damn impressive and somewhat extreme for its time, and some of the visuals are just bone-chilling. There's a back and forth sequence during the christening in which there's also a shooting action scene taking place. This was incredibly unique and creative for its time, and the opening shot lasts for over 2 minutes and is done so smoothly and subtly you just kind of forget and don't notice the art of it. The amount of improvisation that remained in the final film adds on to the impressive factor. Here, actor Lenny Montana was actually so nervous talking to Marlon Brando that he genuinely kept messing up his lines. However, Coppola thought it came across more legitimate and kept it in. Gabriele Torri, who played Enzo, had never acted in front of a camera before. His shaking here is genuine and not acting whatsoever. Marlon Brando slapping Johnny Fontaine wasn't planned, and nor was James Caan throwing this photographer down and then some money. The reactions from the actors were all real. In addition, a fake horse's head was used in rehearsals, but for the actual scene, a real one was, and the actor wasn't informed. This is real.
That man over there is talking to himself.
Hey, it's not that crazy. I agree. Cheers, man. Several times they speak Italian, and I just find it odd that we receive no subtitles. I guess it's up to the viewer's interpretation. So here's mine!
Io ho pensato, oro, parlarne e io e te. A me mi bisogna uno come te, forte. Io capite che non sei contento più con la famiglia Corleone. Capace che vuoi cambiare? Ti vuoi mettere con me?
Basta, i soldi sono buoni.
$50.000 da principio.
Michael's character is very unlikable, but I feel like that was intentional. I mean, he lies to his girlfriend, kills 2 people, runs away to another continent, marries someone else, and as soon as she dies, flies back for a year before telling his last girl he's back, marries her, and then lies about his plans. And she believes him, despite this blatantly guilty reaction.
Don't ask me about my business, Kate.
Is it true?
Don't ask me about my business.
No.
But it's a mafia movie, so I can let this slide as he's still an interesting character. It's a slow transition from the start to finish, and I can't fault it for that. The third act, however, does grow to be quite tiresome. The first two are thrilling and is paced very well. It has incredible storytelling and then great action and then slows down again, but the third act just seems to come to a complete halt and just drags on too much for my liking. Regardless, this is a gem of a movie and I'd highly recommend that you all check it out. Even though it's a Godfather, I must have seen it anyway.